and other Democrats like you have come out and been honest and said, look, I think that this is, people didn't like this policy and they didn't like that policy, and it's a tough economy as well, but sort of recognize the greater landscape.
Right.
She seems to be pinning it all on, they love the policy, they just didn't think we pushed it through fast enough.
Pushed it through, or that it didn't work fast enough. I think that that's what you're hearing from a lot of Democrats, that these policies that they put in place, had they not been put in place, things would have been much worse, and that they are working, but they're not working fast enough. Well, a lot of what we're going to see in the next 3, 4, 5 years on health care, if the health care bill remains intact, are things that people are going to like, no exclusions.
But doesn't this ignore that?
That sort of thing.
This ignores that.
It would not seem totally in keeping with today's reality, which I think requires anyone in her position to face up to the fact that things have gone wrong. She has to do better. That their governing strategy, their governing philosophy was not really playing well with the voters.
Well, to the contrary, she'll be holding a victory party over their accomplishments in about 1 hour.
It's going to be interesting to see right now, because there are some members, there are a small group of members who want to delay the vote. Did you see that?
I saw on who's going to be the minority leader.
Next speaker. I think that if she's running, she probably figures that she's got the votes.
She can count heads.
What the Democrats are struggling with is, like, she's now going to be the face of the Democratic minority in Congress. I think that's very problematic. I mean, I happen to think quite well of her, and I think she's got terrific political instincts and so forth. But it's going to be hard. If she's going to be the face of this for the next 2 years, it's going to be a big problem.
Now, the other thing that people are saying may be potentially a big problem is the relationship between our president, Barack Obama, and our presumed next House Speaker, John Boehner. There's a few articles out this morning talking about how they're a political odd couple, how they don't know how these two guys are going to get along. They have no history of working together. They've never had a one-on-one meeting.
Shocking, right? That's the most shocking.
Isn't that weird? Because he's been the minority leader.
Because politics are about relationships. I mean, if you're in politics, you've got to know that politics are about relationships. And I think that Boehner has, I really put this on Obama, because, it's sort of not in his personality to sort of build these personal relationships. He wants it all to be about philosophy. I actually think that Boehner's handled himself, soon-to-be Speaker-elect Boehner's handled himself quite well in this. I think he's been very dignified. They have not gloated. That he said something about the president setting the agenda, So I think that this is a huge opportunity for President Obama to show the American public, most importantly, that he's someone who can govern collaboratively. And I think the Republicans are going to grab it. We're seeing a lot of positioning now. We're watching people sort of absorb these results in real time and trying to figure out where to plop themselves. Yeah.
Now, Speaker Boehner, or presumed Speaker Boehner, and President Obama are saying the right things now. Before the election, Boehner was a punching bag for President Obama, and vice versa, really. Right. I mean, the Republicans went after the president hard. But listen to what John Boehner said on Hannity just last month. This is before the election, but listen to this.
The problem we have is that when we talk to each other, there's no connection. I've got 11 brothers and sisters. My dad owned a bar. I was a small business guy long before I got into this business. And when I talk about the real world, it doesn't seem to register.
Isn't that interesting? Just talking about sort of a fundamental difference in personality and background and approach, and he's not feeling the connection. How important is that?
Well, I think it's important to have a connection, but I think you can have a connection. Listen, what these two men have in common is that they've both dedicated their lives to the governing process. They've both made these enormous sacrifices in their lives. I mean, even though they've reached the pinnacle of what you could do in their chosen fields, I mean, they both sacrificed. They've both really committed themselves to helping people, whatever you believe about the difference in philosophies.
How do you forge any sort of a bond? Like people talk about how Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan had a trust. They used to have drinks together at the end of the day, and I don't know if they played golf, but they told Irish stories together, I guess. They talk about how Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich could debate policy into the wee hours of the night, even though they had obviously sharp political differences, right? But then they talk about how President Obama doesn't ask any of these politicians out for golf. He doesn't do it. He's friends with his friends, and he legislates with the legislators, and ne'er the twain shall meet.
Right. Well, he's got to get over that. I mean, that you've got to forge these connections. You've got to make these connections happen. I mean, the president is the president. I do believe firmly it is his responsibility. I mean, when you're the president of the United States, even in Washington, even the most senior members of Congress, when you are the president, you know, you're sort of looked up to. You have to set an example. Yeah. I think the president is obligated to sort of forge these connections, and someone on his staff has got to go to him and say, listen, Mr. President, you have to do this. Your presidency depends upon it.
Well, it's even, you see the corporate executives, they don't necessarily want to golf with these guys they go golfing with. They do it because they need to make the relationship and so on.
And I think the most successul corporate executives are people who figure out how to get along. And
this is why I am not in the corporate world.
But you get along with everybody. Look how we get along.
Yeah, well,
and you're glowing, by the way. You look fantastic and you're glowing.
Thank you very much. Richard's been in on the little family secret for a while because obviously he sees me every day. Thank you, Richard. Always a pleasure. Richard Socarides, everybody.